Settling in and just finding a way to sit that's comfortable, or whatever position you need to be in, to be comfortable, but ideally sort of alert as well. So usually best to close the eyes, but if you prefer, you could, if you're sitting, just look downward towards the floor in front of you, or kind of half close them, or keep them open if you need to, especially if you get too sleepy. Letting your shoulders be relaxed, letting your hands and arms just rest loosely wherever it's comfortable. And if you're comfortable with it, just have your mouth gently closed so that you're just breathing in and out through your nose. But of course, if your nose is too stuffy or blocked to do that, then, well, the only other option is breathe through your mouth. You're letting go of any tension in the body. Notice any tension in the face. And bring your attention just to the fact that you're breathing. Just by noticing the sensations, notice that you can feel yourself breathing. Just letting the breath happen. So letting it fall into its natural rhythm. In other words, sort of letting the breath breathe itself without controlling it. So for this type of meditation, you don't have to breathe in any special way. You don't have to control your breath. When we don't control it consciously, it just happens. That's why even when we're asleep, we keep breathing. Of course, we're breathing 24/7, but most of the time we're not sort of aware of it because we're not paying attention. Unless something calls our attention to the breath. Like if we're coughing or having trouble breathing or for some other reason. But most of the time we're probably not sort of paying attention to the fact that we're breathing. Notice that you can feel when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. In other words, you can tell when you're breathing in and out by feeling the sensations in your body. So the aim at this point is just to give the sensations of breathing, your full attention. Focus closely on it to notice the details, the subtle sensations that you can feel, maybe of the air flowing in and out of the nose or mouth, or the subtle movement happening of your chest or belly. You might even notice subtle movements of your shoulders and arms. They kind of get pulled along when the chest rises and falls. As best you can, following the whole breath, one cycle after the other. So you feel the in-breath the whole way through from the start to the end, and then feel the out-breath, the exhalation, from the start of exhaling to the end. Maybe even notice as well that kind of moment when the breath switches over from the in-breath to the out, and then from the out-breath to the in. And of course, as you try to focus on your breath and just follow it and feel it, you'll also notice thoughts coming up. And sometimes you'll notice your mind wandering off completely. Maybe you get lost in thinking, carried away in the thoughts, or just your focus goes somewhere else, or maybe just your focus just kind of gets loose and unfocused. And at any of those times, you really are not in touch with your breath anymore. So anytime you realize that's happened, just make note of where your attention had gone to, and then come back to your breath. So no matter how many times your mind wanders off, that's okay. It's not a problem. Although if you start thinking that's a problem, if you start having thoughts about your mind wandering or thoughts about how the meditation is going, then just notice those also are thoughts. So when we're focusing on the breath or anything else, you don't have to push your thoughts away. We're not trying to make the mind go blank. We're just trying not to get hooked by thoughts. Or when you realize you've gotten hooked by them, just acknowledge that those are thoughts and then let go of the hook and focus instead on your breath. So the breath can be like an anchor, a focal point, not only now when we're meditating, but at any time in the day. It can help you to get out of your head, to unhook from thoughts, because it gives an alternative thing to focus on. When we're focused in detail on one thing, then everything else tends to fade into the background. If a lot of your attention is focused on your breathing, there's just less room for your mind to get caught up with thoughts. And we can sort of unhook from thoughts by focusing on something else, really anything else that's there for us to focus on, anything else that's happening in the present moment. The breath is only one option. Another option is to just be with the body overall and the whole range of sensations. So maybe making that shift now, just in other words, widening the focus, so that in addition to the breath, you're now kind of holding an awareness, focusing on all the various sensations happening all over from head to toe. Feeling all the different types of sensations, the various locations, and also noticing thoughts about whatever, or especially as you feel various things in your body, various sensations, that itself may trigger thoughts about the sensations, thoughts about your body. So if that happens, just again, notice that those are thoughts and kind of let go of the hook. Not being hooked by thoughts doesn't mean we've pushed them away. It just means that we acknowledge that they're thoughts and that we don't engage in them. We don't purposely get into thinking. Instead, it's just acknowledging, oh, there's a thought, and then going back to whatever the focus is, in this case, the whole body. Feeling the sensations on the surface from all the different kinds of nerve endings we have in the skin. Allow us to feel touch or contact against the skin. Or we feel temperature in the skin. Of course, inside the body, you'll notice all kinds of other sensations. Muscles and bones and joints, all the different organs and tissues of the body. So just being an observer of all these various sensations, or coming back to that observing if your mind wanders off. Another option for a focal point is something to ground us in the present moment, especially if we are getting very hooked by our thoughts. The other option that we've used many times as well is to focus on sounds. We could choose any sensory experience. We could choose sights or taste or smell. In fact, a good way to practice mindfulness is to focus on taste and smell, especially while eating. And of course, there's touch and other sensations there too. But for now, Let's shift the focus just to hearing, making that the center of attention, the awareness of sounds. You're already hearing sounds, sound of my voice through the speaker in your device, sounds perhaps coming from within the space you're in or from outside, or maybe even sound of your own breathing or other sounds from your own body. Notice how many different sounds are coming and going, and how this whole sort of soundscape is constantly changing. Some of the sounds occur very briefly, some last a long time, some are very loud, some are more subtle. Notice how incredibly sensitive the ears are to detect so much detail about sound. And again, if you start having thoughts about that, thoughts about your hearing, or thoughts about the sounds you hear, just notice that those are thoughts. Again, acknowledge them and kind of leave them alone and go back to just listening. Maybe notice where your attention is right now. And if you're not still focusing on sounds, notice where your mind had gone to. And then come back to just listening, being an observer of sounds. And throughout the meditation so far, you likely have noticed thoughts coming up repeatedly at different times, different kinds of thoughts. Maybe you've even noticed some of the moments when you were sort of hooked by your thoughts and kind of carried away in the stream of thinking. So now let's make another shift of focus to just directly now observe thoughts the same way we observed sounds or sensations. In other words, just sitting and noticing whenever thoughts pop up. Watching your thoughts this way, it doesn't mean that you're trying to push them away or hold on to them. It's more like stepping back, like you're standing back from something and watching it, looking at it, noticing the details. But in this case, what we're trying to notice the details of our thoughts. Details like whether they occur quickly or slowly or come in bunches, whether they come in the form of words or images or memories or vague impressions. with anything that we try to observe mindfully, we try to hold back on judging, just have an open, curious attitude. See if you can do the same thing with thoughts. So not sort of analyzing them or judging them, but simply acknowledging them. Notice when thoughts come up, if they're thoughts about past events or thoughts about the future, thoughts about yourself or about the meditation, or thoughts about whatever. Just notice, just acknowledge, make note that, oh, okay, there's a thought about this or thought about that. Maybe notice if you start having thoughts about your thoughts. You might also have some thoughts that feel pleasant or some thoughts that feel unpleasant coming up. And with the pleasant or unpleasant thoughts, you might notice emotions that go with them. Feeling states, like feeling happy or sad or nervous or calm, or excited or worried or frustrated or bored, or something just feeling neutral. So thoughts and emotions, thoughts and feelings can come and go and change moment to moment, and we can observe all of that. So maybe letting your awareness be totally open now to whatever is coming up, whatever you're aware of happening in the present moment, whether it's thoughts, feelings, sensations, sounds, other experiences. Usually, I think of there being 9 different types of things we can observe that we can be mindful of. So 5 of those 9 are just what we usually categorize as 5 senses. So we can notice sounds and sights and smells and tastes and the sensation of touch. And the other 4 kinds of experiences we can notice are what we might call internal experiences. Or with our 5 senses, we can know or have contact with things outside of us, outside our body. Whereas the inner experiences are happening inside us. So generally, usually categorized as having 4 types: thoughts, emotions, body sensations, and impulses, meaning sort of the urge or feeling of wanting to do something or not do something. I suppose another thing, in addition to those 9, another thing that we can notice in the present moment is attention itself. We can notice whether our attention is focused or loose, where our attention is focused, whether we have a kind of wide or narrow focus. As best you can, just laying out the welcome mat for all of it. Just sitting, and for the last couple of minutes of the meditation, just sitting in this complete openness to whatever you're experiencing, whatever you notice from moment to moment, allowing things to be as they are. Notice how each moment there's so much happening, and see if you notice the observer, the part of you that's able to be aware of all of this. Maybe even notice whether that observer of all your experiences, whether there's sort of a location for it, somewhere in your body that feels like the observation point. So just staying mindful of your moment-to-moment experience like this until you hear the bell ring. And even then, notice the details of the sound of the bell and what your experiences are during that and after the bell stops ringing.